to another episode of Buckets Rants here on YouTube. Today, a highly anticipated video. We have the point guard rankings by tiers. We did a tiers video of all the players in the NBA. In the last video, we're going to be going by a similar format. In this one, the A range, the B range, and the C range. And we're talking about the top point guards in the league in this video. Again, we're going to be doing a video for all 5 positions on the court and doing some more things with these player comparisons with these tier ranking systems. But to refresh everyone's memory, for the tier rankings, we got the A+ tier, which in this case is going to be the king of the position, the undisputed best in the game. We got the A level, the superstar level. We got the lower superstar level, which is the A-. We got the B tier, and we got the C tier. B tier being complimentary all-star level players, C tier being rising stars that aren't quite there yet, and you got elite role players who are stars in their role but not doing it quite at an all-star level. There again is some gray area, more so in the B and C tiers with pluses and minuses, and the A- tier kind of gets lost in a lot of these for the positions because they are going to be closer together. There's less players we have to rank, and we're ranking them in comparison to their peers at this specific position. You could have someone be an A+ in the point guards category, but they're not overall an A+ in the best in the league category because they're not the undisputed best player in the NBA, but they're the undisputed best player at their position. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it with the A+, and I don't think we should have much speculation here. There should be really no debate. This is the undisputed best point guard in the game, Wardell Stephen Curry, at an A+. Curry is above the rest. He's a multiple-time NBA champ. He changed the way basketball is played. He's the greatest shooter this game has ever seen, probably the greatest offensive force in the game right now and potentially of all time, with his ability to play on and off the basketball, with his handle, with his ability to finish at every level. We talk about the three-point shot, the mid-range, finishing around the rim, an excellent free throw shooter. Steph Curry just changes the game, and his offense is so valuable, which is why he's been the centerpiece of NBA championship squad. He's the undisputed A+. Nobody else in this point guards ranking has even been the centerpiece of a championship team, so this is pretty obvious here. We'll move on to the A tier. We got Luka Doncic, we got Damian Lillard, we got Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook. These guys are superstar point guards, okay? Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double for multiple consecutive seasons. He's won an NBA MVP, and he continues to ball at a high level for the Houston Rockets. In 2020, he was the best player on the Houston Rockets in terms of his production. It was better than James Harden's in 2020. He has had some rough patch when it comes to his perimeter shooting. He's not a great outside shooter, but Russell Westbrook brings a lot to the table despite his flaws, despite the fact that he can turn the ball over a good amount. He still has it all when it comes to rebounding the basketball, assisting the basketball, putting the ball in the basket, whether it be attacking the rim or sometimes being able to hit that mid-range jumper. Kyrie Irving, I mean, we know this dude's an NBA champ. We know he actually did outplay Stephen Curry head-to-head in the 2016 NBA Finals. He's an absolute bucket. We know what he could do as a number 2 option. As a number 1 option, though, we don't really know what he can do yet. We saw Boston year 1. He gets injured for the playoffs, so he wasn't able to prove himself in the playoffs that year. Obviously, a disappointing run in the playoffs last year, and then he gets hurt with the Brooklyn Nets, so we still can't say he's on the A+ level. He's not in that realm when it comes to leadership and team impact anywhere near Steph Curry at this point in time. As an individual talent, in terms of a one-on-one guy, in terms of who's the most skilled at the position, individually speaking, in a one-on-one setting, it would be Kyrie Irving without a shadow of a doubt. But when we're talking about team basketball and team impact, we can't quite put him up there. Damian Lillard's another guy. We had the Damian and Kyrie comparison already. Dame's an absolute bucket. Obviously, the Portland Trail Blazers, as I've touched on before, underperforming this season with a lot of injuries. But, I mean, Dame has led his team to the Western Conference Finals. He's been a big-time impact guy, and we know what he is as a cemented superstar in this game. And then Luka Doncic, the second-year player, he's almost averaging a triple-double in his own right. He's a lot more efficient of a basketball player than Russell Westbrook. He's a good decision-maker. He's a good playmaker. He can rebound the basketball. He doesn't have the athleticism that Russell Westbrook has, but his brain power, his basketball IQ, his decision-making is a lot higher. But these guys are all going to be in this same tier for me. I don't think they're that much of a gap. I would prefer Luka Doncic and Damian Lillard over Kyrie and Westbrook. I would prefer Kyrie over Russell Westbrook because of the scoring ability, because of the shooting ability. I believe he's a better overall bucket generator. But all 4 of these guys, Russell Westbrook included, belong in this conversation for how great they are as basketball players and how much value they bring to a team. Moving on to the B tier, we've got Chris Paul, Ben Simmons, Trae Young, Kemba Walker, John Wall, and Kyle Lowry. And people may ask in this about Trae Young and CP3 mainly, why is CP3 not a superstar? I just don't think his individual production matches the production of these guys that are in the A tier in terms of the amount of points they could put up and the overall impact they have statistically. Obviously, Chris Paul is an extremely impactful player. He's leading the Oklahoma City Thunder to the 5 seed in the Western Conference when many people didn't even expect him to be a playoff team. He's shown his impact in that way, but he's not a guy that can be a volume scorer like that on a consistent basis anymore. He's a little bit declined from where he once was, especially on the defensive side of the basketball. He can still assist the hell out of the basketball, still a great playmaker, but he's just not quite on that level of overall game impacted ability, in my opinion, as the guys that are in the A tier. When it comes to Trae Young, I mean, Trae Young, he's just arguably one of the worst defensive players in all of basketball, but he brings so much to the table on the offensive end of the floor, one of the best bucket generators in the game. He's a top 5 scorer in terms of points per game, and he's also top 5 in assists this season in his sophomore season. The Hawks are not winning basketball games though, and his defense is among the worst in the league, so I just could not put him in the A tier, but he is an all-star level player, perennial all-star level player. He'll be a multiple-time all-star, and I do see he's only a sophomore in the NBA. I do see him eventually moving up into that A tier. He's just not there quite yet. Kemba Walker, we already know what he is. He's cemented. Ben Simmons, I mean, he doesn't put up the kind of points, and he's not the shooter that a lot of these guys are. He can't really shoot. But he still can put the ball in the basket. He's still one of the best passers in this group. He is by far the best defender in this group. Ben Simmons definitely belongs here. We talked about John Wall. John Wall's injured, but we know when he was last healthy, we're still going to include injured players based on where they were, where we believe they would be at if they were healthy. And John Wall had already proven to be an all-star level player, so I'm going to keep him in that all-star tier. Not quite at a superstar level, but he is an all-star level player. He won't be as good as he was when he was last healthy, but he'll be still, I believe, around an all-star level player. And then Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry was an NBA champion last year. Okay, he played a big role with that Toronto Raptors team. He still plays a big role with the Raptors, even though they lost Kawhi Leonard. Is kind of a guy to run the show as a playmaker and do the dirty work, do the little things, take charges. He's just a very active, smart basketball player, and there were years that he did underperform in the playoffs, and I was very critical of him, but he's really proven that he's a really, really solid guard, multiple-time NBA All-Star. Every single year you look up, Kyle Lowry's in the All-Star game. Even though he has yet to win an All-Star game, he's in the All-Star game, and he's competing, and he deserves the spots. So shout out to him. That's the B tier for me when it comes to the point guard position. We move on to the C tier, and these guys, although they aren't all-star level players, are still extremely good, extremely valuable pieces. We talk about guys like Ja Morant, D'Angelo Russell, De'Aaron Fox, Lonzo Ball, Eric Bledsoe, Derrick Rose, Malcolm Brogdon. This is by far the biggest tier of them all. Mike Conley, Dennis Schroeder, DeJounte Murray, Ricky Rubio, George Hill, Patrick Beverley, Spencer Dinwiddie, Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn, and Devontae Graham. And you may ask about those first 3 in particular, or maybe even Eric Bledsoe as well. And Lonzo Ball can be thrown in there too. Are those guys not close to being all-star level players? Are those guys not all-star level players? Well, I just would not say that they're quite at that level yet. And like we said, rising stars that are not quite there yet, if they're not quite there yet, they're not quite there yet. There are sophomores like Luka Doncic and Trae Young that have cemented themselves as all-star level players or above. Ja Morant has not yet to me. Neither has D'Angelo Russell, even though, yes, D'Angelo Russell did make an all-star game before. He was a replacement, but he made an all-star game before. But are these perennial guys where I look at each and every year, they're in that all-star, seriously in that all-star conversation? I don't know if D'Angelo's gotten quite to that level yet. A lot of it has to do with the defensive side of the ball. He is a good scorer. He can put the ball in the basket, very talented. I believe he will eventually be in that all-star conversation yet. Same with Ja Morant, same with Lonzo Ball. I just don't think they're quite there yet. Eric Bledsoe brings a lot to the table, especially defensively. First team all defense caliber guard. Okay, he can do a little bit of everything on the court, but he hasn't shown up in the playoffs. And it's been even more apparent than what happened with Kyle Lowry, man. He's just a no-show when it comes to the postseason. He's not as reliable as a scorer and as a shooter. And a lot of minutes, they do play George Hill instead of Eric Bledsoe. Sometimes he just flows better with the squad, and I feel like Eric Bledsoe hasn't really done enough on a consistent basis, mainly in the postseason, to be considered in that B tier. But he has all the tools, all the ability. If he could just be consistent and he could show up in the playoffs, he could definitely move up to the B tier. George Hill, why is George Hill in here? I mean, he is shooting the three at a crazy clip. Okay, he's a big-time impact player off the bench for the Milwaukee Bucks. Dennis Schroeder is my pick for Sixth Man of the Year. He's been huge for the Thunder off the bench. We know Patrick Beverley's a dog defensively. He brings a lot to the table. Goran Dragic, Kendrick Nunn really approximate each other really well on the same Miami Heat squad. Spencer Dinwiddie, we know he's a bucket. Derrick Rose can get buckets off the bench. He's not at his MVP level, but he's still a really, really good basketball player. Mike Conley, he was once an all-star level player, but he just has not looked the same this year as a member of the Utah Jazz. He's been very underwhelming, and I could not put him in the B tier. Despite the talent that he has, and I know he could be at that level, he's just not at that level at this very moment. Devontae Graham is having a really, really solid season as well, so I had to throw him in. But that's the C tier, and that's overall my tier ranking: the A tier, the B tier, and the C tier. The point guard position is really, really stacked. I mean, when I was going through it, this is probably one of the most stacked positions in the NBA. I had fun doing this tier ranking. We're going to be doing shooting guards in the next video. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think of my rankings, and let me know what you're looking forward to in the future videos. I'm out. Peace.